please call the roll? Or we don't need to, right? The clerk knows. There's no approval of the minutes. Okay. So, I would like to welcome everyone here tonight. We are here to discuss the creation of Homer Glen's first ever Public Works Department. It involves the transfer of responsibilities and the maintenance of our roads from the Township Road District to the village. This is going to be pretty dry stuff, but it's all honest. But this issue is of great importance, not only to our residents of Homer Glen, but all of Homer Township. It's really about controlling our own destiny as a village. It's about accountability to the residents and to the taxpayers of Homer Township. It's about making decisions for ourselves and not being beholden to another layer of government bureaucracy. We will try tonight to put it in simple terms. Other municipalities in Homer Township, including Lockport, New Lenox, Lamont, each have their own public works departments, even though they are much smaller than Homer Glen. In fact, Homer Glen is the largest municipality in Illinois that is dependent on the township to maintain its streets. When Homer Glen was incorporated in 2001, which makes it one of the newer municipalities in the state, we didn't have the money to establish a public works department from the ground up. The equipment, plows, trucks, the staff, workers, we would have to hire, and then the property required to store the trucks and equipment all cost money, unfortunately a lot of money. So the village decided to continue its partnership with the Township Road District under intergovernmental agreement. The relationship has worked out well, but as Kerry will walk you through, the village has grown significantly throughout the years, and we are now ready to take the next step. Like every other municipality in Illinois, and operate independently of other governmental entities. Of the roads in Homer Township Road District maintained, just 18 miles out of the 153 are located outside of Homer Glen. Just doesn't make any sense. We are proposing to transfer the stewardship between the village and the Township Road District. Homer Glen residents have paid for the road district's assets and equipment and have been paying staff for the past 2 decades, and we own the majority of the streets that the road district maintains. So why bother? If it ain't broke, why fix it? Well, if we don't, we will remain beholden to the township and the whims of an outside government board who would have the ability to tell us what roads to maintain, what roads to fix, what roads to plow, and they have the authority to nullify the current intergovernmental agreement and withhold funding in 1 year's time, leaving us to create a public works department from scratch, which would cost taxpayers millions of dollars. Furthermore, this transfer will create a system that's more fair to our residents. Currently, Lockport, New Lenox, and Lamont taxpayers all pay the Township Road District to maintain its roads, even though their local municipalities do the work. They would no longer have to pay this double tax, and we would ensure that those 18 miles of unincorporated streets are maintained. Records matter. You can judge us by ourselves, just by ours. We run the village very responsibly, we operate efficiently, and have kept streamlined with fewer resources and staff compared to other towns. And while we've grown quickly, we have no debt, we are accountable to you, and we know it shows. The transfer will benefit our residents because we will establish accountability. We are no longer beholden or indebted to the township, and will transfer, which actually will lower the cost to taxpayers in the long run. Our goal tonight and during the process is to demonstrate transparency. We will provide you with the facts and answers and all of your questions. At any time, the public is welcome to reach out to us with questions or concerns, and we welcome you to visit our website to learn more. So, Carrie, if you'd like to take the rein and start the show.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For those of you who are listening, or those of you here today, my name is Carrie Friendly, and I'm the village manager for the village of Homer Glen. We have a short presentation for you tonight. We're going to ask you to hold your comments or questions till the very end. We do have note cards and pencils at the desk by the door. If you think of a question or something that you would like to have answered, please jot it down on the note cards, and we will collect them at the end of the presentation, and we will try to answer all the questions tonight. And we will also put those questions and answers on our website tomorrow morning. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This slide here is basically an overview of the presentation tonight and some of the main points that we're going to try to hit on for the benefit of the public. Can everyone hear me okay back there? So the first couple of slides we're going to address, we thought it was important to talk about how far and how much Homer Glen has grown over the years. As most of you know, in 2021 we're going to be celebrating our 20th birthday. And you think about how far we've come since 2001 is a pretty remarkable story. Most communities that are neighboring to us are over 100 years old, so in terms of a timeline, you kind of start to get the sense that we're still pretty young in terms of a life cycle of a village or community. However, I do think it's important to highlight some of the, how do you get that off the screen there? You're messing with my mojo. Just hit this right here. Okay, all right, we're back. All right, so just a minute, I'm not going to read these slides to you because you guys can read yourself and you have the handouts to take with you tonight. But I think there's a couple important critical milestones within the history of the village that we do want to make note of tonight. Obviously, the most important one is the year that we incorporated as a village, which was in 2001. Then the following year was when we entered into an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with the Homer Township Road District for them to oversee and maintain the miles of road that are now village-owned. We're village-owned then, and over time they have grown as the village has grown. The next major milestone on this particular screen is when the voters decided to vote in home rule status, which was in 2012. That was via a referendum, and it was approved with overwhelming majority, which again showed the strong dedication of the community to control its own destiny as we moved into the future. The next important thing was really where we're sitting here tonight, which is basically the purchase of the former golf course, and then how that has evolved over time to where we sit here today, which is our village hall, our beautiful park that sits out back. And that was a big milestone for the village as well as we continue to grow and evolve over time. And then as you get into some of these other dates, you can see that we also began doing some more additional taxing, taking control of our financial planning long term. And then as we get into the next slide, you're going to see 2019, which was just last year, was a really big milestone year for the village as well, because this is basically when Homerfest moved from the Township to its new permanent home, which was here at the Heritage Park. That was in 2019. We also are now in the business of owning our own utilities and controlling our own growth for the future. And we also became debt-free, as the mayor mentioned in his remarks. We paid off all the bonds, and the village board voted that last year, to make sure that we were debt-free and financially strong. And then today, we sit here today, ready to take that next step forward to retain our own roads and control our own future as it relates to roads and maintenance of those. So as we go through this presentation tonight, there's a couple of things that's important to remember. It's important to remember that every single governmental stakeholder that we're going to be discussing tonight is its own separate entity. We are separate from the road district. The road district is separate from the Homer Township. The city of Lockport, the village of New Lenox, the village of Lamont, we're all separate from each other. We have no control or authority over each other. So that's important to remember as we get further into the presentation. So what is our relationship with the Homer Township Road District? I have Road Commissioner DeVivo sitting to my right here. As mentioned earlier, we formalized the IGA back in 2002. It was a means to which we could have someone who was already maintaining the roads in the township continue to maintain the roads for the village. It provided an opportunity for us to share in those costs as well as share in the assets as well. But one of the things that's important to note on this slide, it is a very one-sided agreement. And the reason I say that is because it does give total control over to the man sitting here next to me, who's been a friend to the village. He has been a great friend for the village for many, many years. but it still does not allow us to control how we plan, how we budget, how we maintain, how we grow our future roads. It is out of the hands of the village board. In addition to that, it also, Mr. DeVivo's budget is also approved annually by the Homer Township Board as well. So there's another layer of oversight on top of just the maintenance of the road. The financing, the taxing, the budgeting of that is again out of the hands of the village. So what are some of the additional duties of the Homer Township Road District? In addition to taking care of all of our roads, he takes care of all the unincorporated miles of roadway within the village, within the Homer Township, which is about 18 miles. And you're going to see some slides that break that down in a few minutes. He also assists us with our Homerfest planning and oversight. He is a voting seat on the village's Public Services and Safety Committee, and he's a liaison to the Homer Township Board of Trustees. So what doesn't the Township Road District do? They do not take care of the roads that are currently located in the city of Lockport and the village of New Lenox that are also in the township as well. They're overlapping governmental jurisdictions. So each of the individual municipalities take care of their own roads, except for the village. We do not. So this map up here on the screen is basically a map that kind of shows you how the township is divided up amongst the different jurisdictions. The pink area here, which you can see with the cursor I have here, the arrow, is all the village of Homer Glen, incorporated within the village of Homer Glen. And the village of Homer Glen makes up 61% of the Homer Township. The other areas, this yellow area is Lockport, the blue area down at the bottom is New Lenox, and then the light beige color is unincorporated Homer Township. So this is just a reference for everyone to understand how the township is broken down amongst the other governmental entities. So what about the ownership of the roads? This slide shows it breaks down the road miles by ownership. As you can see here, Homer Glen is 58% of the ownership of the roads within the township, which equals about a little over 135 miles. These roads here in this first column are all owned by the village of Homer Glen. We own them, but the road district takes care of them. The second largest ownership of the roads within the township is the city of Lockport, a little over 47 miles. And then the third one is actually roads that are owned by other entities such as IDOT, Will County, and there are some private roads as well that that we don't take care of. And then you can see here that unincorporated Homer Township, which is basically this pie shape here, which is 8%, is only 18 miles. So then what about the roads that are maintained by the road district? So what the road district maintains is all of Homer Glen's and the unincorporated 18 miles. So if you break it down, you can see that number then goes up to 88% of their annual operations, capital investment, what they do to take care of roads. That's snow plowing, that's maintenance, that's resurfacing, all those things that you see them out there doing on a daily and weekly basis. 88% of that is for our roads, and then 12% of that is for the unincorporated miles. However, even though we own the 88% of these, we still have no direct legal authority or input over how those roads are maintained. So this slide also shows that we are the largest investor and owner of the road district's operations and assets. The village of Homer Glen residents are. So how is the road program taken care of? There are two line items on your tax bill that basically, if you were to look at your tax bill today, you would see that are levied by the road commissioner. The first one is the Road and Bridge District levy right here. And the second line item is the Equipment and Building Fund. And these are his 2019 levies for each individual one. So you can see of this, 63% of that levy, the funds that go into that levy, are paid for by property owners in the village of Homer Glen. The second largest one, again, is the city of Lockport. So it's important so I'm going to come back to the slide in just one second. I'm going to go to the next slide. The next slide is, okay, what about how is the annual funding of his operations funded? And you're going to see that these numbers have changed. And there's a reason they have changed. Because of the road and bridge tax, I'm going to go back to the original slide, this money here that you see here, half of it when it is paid goes to the road district, and the other half goes to the respective municipality. So this number here for Lockport of $1.2 million, slightly over, half of it goes to the road district, and the other half of it goes back to the city of Lockport for their operations under their public works department. The difference for the village of Homer Glen is because the road district takes care of our roads, this whole $2.7 million stays with the road district. We don't take that half back and use it for something else, but it goes towards the operations on an annual basis. So when you get to this slide here, you can see that our then ownership goes up to 73% because we are paying more into the operations annually than any other vested stakeholder. And again, the second largest one is Lockport, which is 19%. And it is also important to note that the unincorporated Homer Township is made up of only 8%. So in addition to the levy that funds the operations of the road district, the village also provides additional annual money for MFT funds. MFT is motor fuel tax. It's the tax that you pay when you fill up your gas tank. And annually we give $183,600 to Mr. DeVivo to go towards additional funding of the road district. Total through 2019 has been a little over $3.1 million to go towards operations. It should be noted that even though Lockport was getting half of that road and bridge tax back to them every single year, and the other half was getting paid into the road district, even though the road district wasn't taking care of their roads, there have been contributions made by the road district on behalf and to the city of Lockport. And this slide basically breaks down what those are. And you can see back in 2008, all the way to 2013, there was mutual participation in certain road improvement projects that would be funded by the road district back to the city of Lockport. And then starting in 2016 to 2020, you can see that there was then a financial contribution made back. So they were getting some of that money back that they were paying into the road district, but not all of it. So what does this mean? Basically what it means is that the Village of Homer Glen property owners have been paying for the road district since 2001. They are the largest investors and owners of the road district by 63%. The other communities, particularly the city of Lockport, have also been paying into the road district. The smaller owners and investors, but nonetheless, they are an investor into the road district. However, the difference between them and us is that the road district does not take care of their roads. They have their own public works departments that does that. And so that they get to keep that 50% that I spoke of previously, but the other 50% goes into basically fund Homer Glen's roads. And that's why that's unfair. That needs to stop, and that's why we believe the system as it currently is being taken care of, which is by state statute, that's the way it has to be, needs to change. Something has to change to move forward. And then again, just to highlight, unincorporated Homer Township accounts for 18 miles of road, and those residents and property owners in unincorporated Homer Township are a 7% owner investor into the road district. But yet again, the Homer Township Board and the road district makes all the decisions making as it relates to the roads. So it's important to understand that this existing intergovernmental agreement can be nullified by either party with only 1 year's notice. And if that were to happen, because we don't have equipment, we don't have buildings, we don't have real estate, we don't have assets, our taxpayers, our residents, our property owners could be on the hook for significantly more to cover those costs of those services if we had to build a public works department from the ground up. So what is the solution? The solution is for the transfer of the stewardship of the road district to the Village of Homer Glen, which was adopted unanimously by resolution to begin the process to do that. So this is step one and many steps that still have to come, back on September 23rd. So I'm going to now turn this over to our village attorney, Eric Hansen, who's going to explain to you how this can happen within the existing confines of state statute as the laws are on the books today. Eric?
Thank you, Carrie. When I talk about, I'm going to be talking a little bit about road district property. And And we've been talking about the roads. What I mean when I say road district property is the real estate, first of all, so you're looking at the land, the real property, the buildings that are on the land, but also the equipment. So we're talking about trucks, plows, and those assets that are otherwise called personal property. And I think when we get started here, one of the things that we can all agree upon, and this isn't my quote, this is actually Mr. DeVivo's quote, is that the property belongs to the township residents. It belongs to the public. But legally, it's owned by the road district, not the township board, and it's also controlled by the road district. Again, not the township board, it's the road district as an entity, which is Mr. DeVivo. And there are several legal mechanisms under state statute that authorize the transfer or the sale of road district property to the village of Homer Glen. And I just wanted to briefly touch upon those. They're in your handouts, but one of those is the Illinois Highway Code. That allows the road district to transfer equipment and real estate to public bodies such as the village of Homer Glen. So that right off the bat, the Illinois Highway Code allows for this sort of transfer. In addition, though, there's the Illinois Local Property Transfer Act. It's a separate statute. That also provides for the transfer or sale of real estate between public bodies. So you've got the road district transferring property, assets, land, what have you, to the village of Homer Glen. Both those laws allow the transfer of this property between the road district and the village of Homer Glen. There has been discussion that the road district doesn't have that authority. And I just wanted to point out that based on those statutes and the case law, I disagree. Those permit the authority and they allow this transfer to go forward between the road district and the village. And with that, turn it back over here.
So we've talked a lot about the village of Homer Glen residents and property owners, but what about those residents who don't live within the village of Homer Glen? What happens to them? So, as we mentioned previously, the city of Lockport, which is the second largest investor owner of the road district, they deserve, the residents and the property owners who have been paying into the road district, they deserve to be compensated for their investment. And so we're in the process of finalizing appraisals for the assets. We're getting an appraisal done for the equipment and all the assets in terms of personal property. And we're also having an appraisal done to determine the fair market value of the real estate and the buildings as well. Those are the two numbers that we need to determine what the fair market value of the assets are now. Once we have that, then we're going to continue to sit down with the village of Lockport as well as New Lenox. They're a smaller partner, but nonetheless still a partner in the road district, to begin negotiations on what is a fair value for them to be reimbursed for their prior investment. For the residents of unincorporated Homer Township, who are the smallest owners or investor in the road district, they still have those 18 miles of road that still need to be taken care of. So what do we do about that? Well, the village board has offered to take care of those roads at no cost to the township through a new intergovernmental agreement. The village board believes this is more than a fair offer, as they have to have their roads maintained, but they won't have to pay for it and will no longer be on their property tax bill. It's important to note, though, that that decision on what happens with those 18 miles of road rests 100% solely with the Homer Township Board. We cannot make them accept that offer, and they do own those 18 miles of road. So that decision has to be made by the Township Board. The ultimate goal, though, is when we're completely done with the entire transfer and everyone has been compensated for their fair share as public investors into the road district, that no one who lives in the Homer Township will have to pay taxes into the road district again. That's the goal. So how will then this new Public Works Department be funded if we do the transfer? What we will have to do, the Village of Homer Glen will have to levy its own road and bridge tax to pay for the annual operations going forward. This will be a new line item on your property tax bill. The other two line items that we mentioned previously will no longer appear on the real estate bill. The village will continue to fund a portion of the operations with our motor fuel taxes as well. It's important to note that in order for us to do our own levy, just like every other governmental entity within the state of Illinois, state statute requires us to set that levy by the end of this calendar year, by mid-December of 2020. So that is a hard and fast deadline. It has to be done by this year. The ultimate goal is to have the final transfer of the real estate and the assets to be done in spring of 2021. There's been a lot of talk about the current referendum that's on the ballot that was presented by the Homer Township Board. And I think it's important to know that the ballot referendum, whether the road district should be abolished or not, has absolutely nothing to do with the need to fund a public works department for the village of Homer Glen. Because the reason I say that, whether it happens tomorrow or next year or next spring, when the public works department is formed, however that is formed, there has to be a funding source for that. We have to be able to plow our roads when it snows. We have to be able to take care of them. We have to be able to do drainage improvements. Those things still have to incur. The difference is no longer will it be funded by the road district, it will be funded by the village. So how will this affect my taxes? Those people who live within the village of Homer Glen, obviously that's something that they're going to want to know. So what I have up here is a sample of a tax bill based on the 2019 tax rates that were set. So on this column over here, can everyone see my little arrow here? What you have, the light blue line items on this tax bill is basically the two line items that are levied every year by the road district. One is the road district Township Road Fund, and the other one is the road and bridge tax. If you add these two numbers together, they total this 0.3191. That is the current tax rate that every resident within the township, Homer Township, pays on an annual basis. The estimated new tax rate for the village of Homer Glen, when we create the public works, when we take the transfer, we have a public works department that's up and running, is estimated to be 0.5037. So that's this line item right here, the new green line item. So you can see last year's bill, there was no Village of Homer Glen public works tax on your bill. It was just these two blue line items. For next year, these will be gone, and there will be a new line item, which totals is 0.5037. The reason why the rate goes up is because it's no longer being paid by those other residents and property owners who live in Lockport, New Lenox, and Lamont. We fixed the problem. We fixed the problem that we previously talked about of them paying into our roads and they don't live in the village of Homer Glen. So that is why the rate has to go up, because now we're levying the same exact dollar amount that the road district levied. We're not increasing that at all. But because we're spreading it out over less people and less geographic area, that's why the rate bumps up slightly. So what does it mean for a $250,000 home? Basically, it would be about a $142 increase in your annual property tax bill. Now, it's important to note that's a one-time increase to fix the problem, the inequity that currently exists within the funding structure, but again, it is a slight increase. So again, this is just a summary. For about every $100,000 in market value in your home, your taxes would go up about $57. One other thing is important to remember, though, is as a unit of a local government, we're home rule. What does that mean? It means that the village board has the ability, not the obligation, but the ability to tax in additional different ways that the township government does not have available to them. One of those is sales tax. When you go and you buy something within the village, you pay sales tax amount. That comes back to the village. We have motor fuel taxes. Again, when you go to get your gas, a portion of that comes back to the village. We also get, on a monthly basis, we get local government distribution funds from the state of Illinois. That's based on whatever community, whatever your population, your community. Higher population, the more money you get. That's why the census is so important, to make sure everyone's counted. So these are, the reason we're highlighting this tonight is because there's flexibility built in to a unit of home rule government that allows us to supplement additional revenue into the annual operations of a future public works department. So it doesn't have to be paid 100% with real estate property taxes, unlike the road district or the township government does. So those decisions are made on an annual basis by the village board that you guys elect every 2 years. So I just want to make sure that there's an understanding is that you could supplement. The board could decide to put some more MFT money in. They could decide to put a lot of different revenue sources to come up with what that annual budget's going to be on a yearly basis. The other thing that's important to remember is that as the village of Homer Glen continues to grow, and we have a lot of land still to develop and grow into, we are not a maturing community like many of our surrounding neighboring towns are. We're actually still a growing community. Is the EAV, the equalized assessed value, that's the value of the property that is taxed, will go up too. And this slide kind of shows you how much has gone up just in the 20 years that we've been incorporated as a village. You can see here in 2001, our value of all property within the village was a little over $554 million. Today, it's at slightly under $1 billion. So you can see that in the last 20 years, the EAV has grown by over $424 million. A lot of that is because there's been new subdivisions have been built, there has been new commercial development that has occurred. All of that is that factors into the property taxes. So you can see today the breakdown of where we sit today, where 92% of our EAV is residential and 7% is commercial. Why is this important? Because as we continue to grow, those properties that are currently being assessed at a much lower vacant land assessment or even agricultural assessment will be reassessed and they go on the property tax bills. And once those get assessed, then that gets spread out, and that burden to carry the property taxes actually goes down. And we just wanted to include a couple other projects that are currently we know are either approved by the village board or is actually under construction. Those include the townhomes on Bell Road, Sherwood Home and Auto on 159th Street, and a few others. So growth, this is why growth is so important to a community, because that EAV grows, the burden decreases across all the property owners. So what is the value of the road district? As I said previously, we don't know for sure yet, but we think it's going to come in around $7 million total. Again, we're waiting for those final appraisals to be done, but we do think it's going to be around $7 million. So what would it cost if we had to create a new public works department from the ground up? I can guarantee you, as I sit here tonight, it would cost a lot more money than $7 million. You have to go out and buy land. We'd have to build buildings. We'd have to build salt buildings. We'd have to buy all the equipment. A snowplow costs $200,000. Each snowplow you see out on the streets costs $200,000. That's why this is so important, because the residents and the property owners of Homer Glen, you have already paid for those assets. You have already paid for the real estate, and you have been paying for it over the course of the last 20 years. So has Lockport, so has a small percentage of New Lenox, and so has the unincorporated residents. But the largest stakeholder, the largest owner and investor in the road district has been the residents and property owners in the village of Homer Glen. So what are the next steps? We have a lot to do still. This is not something that's going to be done overnight. This is the first, as you can see on the slide, this is the first of many things that have to be done. It was very important for the village board to reach out to our residents and make sure that they understood and we were transparent in sharing all the data, all the statistics, and all the steps that needed to be gone through. There, as I mentioned earlier, we have to get the appraisals done. We've already met with the city of Lockport. We will continue to meet with them as we negotiate what their value of the asset is due to them. And these are just a few of the other things that still have to be done. So what about that Township Referendum that's out there floating around? As we know, early voting has already started. It's important to know that the Township Referendum was not proposed by the village of Homer Glen, nor was it proposed by the road district. This was an independent decision and vote made by the Homer Township Board. They did not discuss it with any of the parties, nor did they ask for input from any of the parties. So this is basically the referendum that everyone will see on election day or before. Basically transferring all the authority and responsibilities, properties, assets, and liabilities from the road district to the township board. So basically what does this mean? It means that the authority of our roads and everything that's related to them would transfer from Mr. DeVivo, the road district, to the authority and the ultimate decision-making to the Homer Township Board. It also means that everyone in the Homer Township will continue to get taxed. Everyone. You can't pick and choose which properties get taxed within a jurisdiction of local government. And everyone will continue to pay into the road into the Homer Township. If the referendum is defeated, the village board intends to begin to continue to move forward on the transfer of stewardship and to create our own public works department with the existing road district assets. It will be managed, it will be led by the village and accountable to the village of Homer Glen's residents and property owners. And we will also make sure that we negotiate fairly with the other communities to make sure that their ownership assets are taken into consideration. And we have also have committed to being fair to the township residents, making sure their 18 miles of road continue to be maintained. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. As we said before, we want everyone to know everything that's going on and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. This is something that we would be in control of, and as Carrie had said, with the other businesses that are coming forward, houses coming in, you have more of a tax base coming in, so it's all going to help. We are very frugal with what we do in the village. You can see that when we had this place built, we knocked off pretty close to $800,000 off of what was going to be spent. Everything that we've done with the park outside, everything's paid for. We have virtually no debt. So I think that this board has done absolute wonders to get to where we're at right now. But we need this because otherwise we're at the mercy of someone else. So you got to figure out that if someone else took this over and didn't have the skin in it the way we do, one night you go to bed and it's absolutely fine. You wake up the next morning, there's 8 inches of snow on the ground, and there's nobody there to push it. So we want to be in control of our own destiny. This is our village. You have all put the money into this. So with that, I'll turn it over to Trustee Gabriel.
Thank you, Carrie, for presenting that in such an eloquent fashion. It is extremely important for this referendum to be declined. It is extremely important for us as a village to control our own destiny and make sure that we're taking care of the residents of this community. I said it last week, it's prudent that we don't hide our head in the sand because of a levy or a tax. Really, to me, it's more of a replacement tax of something that's already existent on everyone's tax bill. It is going to go up because the pool of people paying into it is smaller. But again, it's a service that if we were going to start from ground up, it could be several more millions of dollars than what we're talking about if we do this transfer, the stewardship transfer. It's important that we'll create efficiencies internally. We'll look at the current model. I know the question has come up about the employees of the road district. They are going to be eligible for jobs through this new public works department. So we will look at all avenues to make sure that we're doing it above board and transparent as we can be. I think everybody on the board, for the most part, I won't speak for them, but I think is in support of this and understands it enough that we feel that we need to proceed with this stewardship transfer. So I fully support it.
Thank you, Trustee Gabriel. Trustee Beckle.
Thank you, Mayor. My wife and I moved here in 1994. 191st Street was a gravel road at that time. And I remember attending all of the meetings for incorporation in 2000. Seems like a long time ago, but it really flew by. At that time we had great visions for our new village, opportunities for growth, having our own village hall. And I remember the day that we finally did get incorporated, and it was a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months later, I live 1 block from here, and I had a Lockport address. And I remember the day that I got my first bill in the mail for water, and it said 15026 Eagle Ridge Drive, Homer, Glen, Illinois. And my wife and I were thrilled. We no longer had a Lockport address, we had a Homer address, and it really meant something, I think, to everybody that happened to. A lot of the families here are younger and haven't been here as long as some of the, there's some people in the audience that have been here since the 60s and 70s probably, but it was a big, big day when that happened. It was finally our village, it was our plans, our ideas. Home rule then came later. We were no longer beholden to Lockport or any other municipality, and we decided our future. The Highway Department and the Public Works is the next progression in that step, and we are finally going to be in control of our destiny, and that's why this is so important. Is there going to be a tax increase? Yes. It's going to be around $57 per $100,000 home value. But this is not just a tax for the sake of having a tax, and I'm against taxes. However, when you consider that the value that's involved, the value greatly outweighs the price increase of the tax. And why would Homer Glen allow Homer Township to maintain our roadways when they basically own 8% of the roads in Homer? That's basically what I have. Thank you.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Carrie, for putting on a great presentation. And thank you, everybody, for coming out. As I said last week, this is a lot of confusing stuff. We know that, we get that, we're sensitive to that. There's a million points to this. There's a lot of players with very similar names, Homer Township Road District, Homer Glen, and then you throw in the other municipalities that have an ownership stake in here. We get it, it's very confusing. So I said this last week, and I'll encourage everybody again, if you have any questions, please reach out to any one of us. Our contact information is on the website, homerglenil.org. Reach out to the mayor, he's always putting his number out there. All of our cell numbers are available too through the village. We'd be happy to answer anybody's questions and talk to you. But one of my comments last week, Mayor, and I'd like to touch on this again if I can. You know, we kind of get lost in the what is the stewardship and the oversight and the ownership of the road district, and really what it comes down to is what does everything really mean to the residents? And it means that when there's a snow event at midnight, the mayor and our professional staff who are running our village will have the authority to call out the plows to make our roads safe for travel. If this were an a la carte menu item from the township board acting as our vendor, they might not be so inclined to make that call in the middle of the night. It means that when there is a wind, hail, ice storm, and there are trees in the roads, all of the roads, we'll have the authority to call out our crews to take care of our residents. Would the township board be as flexible and accommodating to these needs? It means that when we need the services of a full public works department, that we'll be ready and able to perform for our residents. The road district right now is not a public works, but they have tried to be as accommodating as they can over the years. Thank you, Commissioner DeVivo, for that. Our intergovernmental agreement right now leaves all of these decisions to the road district commissioner. And as Carrie said earlier, he is a friend of the village. He does yeoman's work in trying to make sure that he's taking care of everything that he can for us within, you know, the confines of what he's got. These same decisions, though, would go to the township supervisor and the township board of trustees if the township were to assume all the duties and obligations of the road district. Why would we want these critical and vital services being performed by a board that was elected to serve some other purpose? The mayor and the board of trustees of Homer Glen have a responsibility to the residents of our community. It's natural that these decisions be made in this building. As Trustee Caprio said earlier, I'm in full support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. DeVivo, would you like to say a few words?
Amen. The intergovernmental agreement that we've been working with and has made all this work has been in force since 2003. That's about 17 and a half years. And I've been highway commissioner through 15 and a half years of that. So it's worked quite well. When Mayor Yukich got elected, I met with him and said, look, you know, this really works well. Unfortunately, it's extremely unfair to a lot of people in Homer Township. And And it only works well as long as I stay on or somebody like me gets elected. As somebody once said, just recently in social media, when this first began to appear, that the village was going to take over the road district, the question was asked, why would you buy the cow when you get the milk for free? Well, the problem with that is the farmer, which is me, gets reelected every 4 years, and the next farmer may say, I'm not going to give you the milk. So there is a real subtlety here that it's very vulnerable to that position. This works well as long as somebody who sits in this chair, who was elected as a highway commissioner, wants to do everything that we're doing here now. This person has sole authority over it. What the referendum is trying to do, although it says abolish the township, what that's trying to do is take the authority from the highway commissioner and turn it over to the village board, which means that then the village board would have sole authority over, or rather the town board would have authority over when the roads get plowed. And so that's what that referendum is doing. And that works well as long as the village board and the town board get along. How well they get along? Well, the last board meeting, they all voted to sue us. So you can see it's quite easily, it could go south pretty quick. When I first became elected, there were people in Lockport. There was actually a group who came to me and said, hey, look, this is unfair. It was a rude awakening, and I saw it, and I realized that it took me a while to figure out just how unfair it was. I met with a lot of people trying to fix it, and it couldn't be fixed under this current situation, under the current set of circumstances. There was no magic wand, there was no numbers, there was no way to tax it, there was no way to give money back. It just couldn't be fixed. So when I met with George, I said the only resolution here is to turn the road district over to the village. And when I started this, my only concept was, why would the village have to pay for something that the residents already own? I know there's a lot of discussion, and you may be hearing it more and more, over who owns the road district, or who has control of the road district. And I guess you could say right now it's the road district commissioner. But when I was elected to office, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state of the United States of America. And in that it says the government is of the people, for the people, and by the people. Well, I can't see anybody owning it but you. It's yours. And I can't see any way in the world why you'd have to buy, lease, rent something you already own. And Homer Township, long before Homer Glen, has been around for since 1836. So the citizens that live in this community and the people before them have been investing in this road district for 180 years. And to expect them to completely walk away from it and buy a new one, it's just ludicrous. The legal path to get this done, as the attorney said, is through state statutes. And a few state statutes that determine how public bodies, not only road districts, but all public bodies, disperse what they refer to as idle or surplus equipment. And the statutes can be broken down into two categories. One is where the public body would sell, let's say, the road district to a landscaper. Then all the people in the community are no longer having the benefit of something that they invested in. For the purpose of a transfer to a public entity, to a private entity, the term a fair market value, 80% of a fair market value, it must be appraised properly. Those are the phrases that are used. But when a public body transfers assets and real estate to another public body, the state people who wrote the statutes understand that the public will still benefit from it. And it's so concerned that the public still benefits from it, they only say it applies to when the transfer takes place within the county or within a collar county. Because once it gets beyond that, the people who originally own it more than likely won't benefit from it. The beauty of this, it's not even leaving the township. It's the same people who own it. So we're not transferring it to another people. We're just keeping the same people who own it. There's different people who control it. What I think everybody should truly understand here is over the years that I've been working on this and looking at this, it is truly an effort to make sure that every one of the 40,000 people who live in Homer Township some way benefit from this transfer. This doesn't favor one part of the community over another, okay? To be honest with you, I think the people who benefit from it financially the best is the city of Lockport. Because once this transfer takes place, their taxes will go down, and I can get into the weeds about this, but in the average house in Lockport, I can easily say several $100s. I mean, it's not uncommon for a Lockport resident to be paying $250, $300, $400 into this road district levy that I have. That goes almost completely away, because they'll no longer be subsidizing that. And as far as the taxes being raised in Homer Glen, I understand that upsets a lot of people, but when you think about that, almost every time a community comes to you and says, look, I want to raise your taxes, it's because they got something more to do. They want to do something more than they've done before. This raising taxes is only to continue on as before, and the only reason the taxes are being raised is because the city of, the village of Homer Glen is no longer being subsidized by the rest of the community. So I think all of this is fair. I think everybody in the Homer Township area, not just the village of Homer Glen, will benefit from this move. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner DeVito. Now we have questions. Anyone else have any citizen questions? Or online?
Not online, Mr. Mayor.
For the people that do have any questions, if you ever get an opportunity to speak at the mic, all you have to do is just give a call, talk to any one of the trustees, myself, any of the village staff. The two people that have signed up tonight for it would be first Tony Draven. Tony, if you could try to keep it to 3 minutes so we don't.
Yes, no problem. Yes, thank you. Okay, so, first of all, I'd like to say, I give you guys a lot of credit for taking something like this on right now. It'll be good for everyone here at Homer Glen. And I guess the question for the referendum here, people really need to ask themselves is, who do they want to operate this department? The village or the township? And the village, to me, is a no-brainer. They got capable, professionally hired, qualified staff to take something like this on. And that's why I say you vote no for this referendum. And also, it's been, the supervisor, she's been heard saying that the village of Homer Glen residents do not pay the going rate, and that she would levy a small tax on all of us, or she would levy a small tax on all the township for 18 miles. Then the rest of the bill would go to the village, which would end up costing the village, compared to what it pays now, an additional $800 to $1.2 million more a year than what's currently paid. There is a website up there from Homer Township that's got a lot of misleading stuff on there that I think people should be calling the village and asking them questions here. And I think we all need to kind of try and get the information out there to kind of clarify some of the stuff. There's the information is coming off of homerroads.com. I read a lot of stuff on there that's kind of misleading, saying that the taxes are going to go up in Homer Glen. Well, what tax? There is no municipal tax. This is just going to be a tax transfer from the highway department to the village. So, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Draven. Joanne
We're Bosco.
Bucka?
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
I've lived in Homer Glen. I moved into Homer Glen in 1978, so I've been around. And I think everybody is in agreement that our roads, as well as the lighting and whatever else the Homer Road District has been responsible for, has done a hell of a job for each Mike, and your predecessor as well, for an accurate job.
Right.
I'm just curious as to that rate that appears on the tax bill between those two taxing bodies of Homer Township, how that equates to the $57 per household per $100,000 evaluation. How does that compare? By today's rate, what would that equal to? I guess we could all crunch the numbers and figure that for ourselves. But the other thing that concerns me is that I know, Mayor, I think you announced back in July, I read that you were going to take over the road district. And it's just recently, through social media, there are some good things with social media that I've been reading that made me aware of prior to the referendum being announced. And I appreciate these public meetings to make us aware of what's going on. I've also been trying to listen to the Homer Township board meetings as well. Personally, I think they're getting a very bad rap based on if the common citizen just listens to the facts. There's no reason that we should be bad-mouthing those folks as we do. I would suggest to all the Homer citizens, if you haven't been listening to or reading those minutes from the Homer Township, to do so. And go to the Homer Township building just down the ways and pick up, they have published a couple documents about frequently asked questions. And just read the facts for yourself, both sides of it. I'm not here to give anybody any advice, but I think there's a lot of information out there that maybe you aren't getting everything right here now as well. I wish I had more time to prepare for this meeting. I didn't prepare like I had hoped, because I could probably come up with crunch those numbers myself and see if there's a fair comparison. What concerns me is that I believe it was the last Homer Township meeting. Mike, you were in attendance. I listened to the audio version, and it appeared as though because Lockport Township, or Homer Township residents in the municipal city boundaries of Lockport are being overtaxed, you tried to do a good thing, and it sounds like a handshake agreement between you and the mayor of Lockport to give them back some of those funds. Now, whether those citizens actually see that break is another story. So that's just a concern I have on behalf of those folks. We talk about the major stakeholders, and because we feel, Homer Glen residents, we are the major stakeholders here. We talk about those 18 miles of road as compared to the total miles of road. I read in the October Tribune an article about this issue, and it actually did talk about the 25,000 people who live in Homer Glen as opposed to the 40,000 in Homer Township, correct? So there's a lot of stakeholders outside of Homer Glen here when we talk about the residents. So once again, for all those folks, and I hope there's more out there listening, that they go and get all the facts from both sides of the story to make an intelligent decision on voting day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe you could, am I correct in that we tried to compensate, Mike, the citizens?
Yeah, I did over a period of about 12 years. Through an intergovernmental agreement, I originally met with then Mayor Dev Chavetti and said, look, we should try to do something, and my goal was to give them about $100,000 a year. That became financially impossible because just the way the costs are. To give you an idea, when I was first became highway commissioner, our goal was to repave every year 10 miles of road. Now we're only able to do 5 because of costs. So costs are going up much faster than our levy, okay? So as that happened, it was more and more difficult to hand money over to the city of Lockport. But that was my original goal. And as the slide showed, over a period of 12 years, we gave back $713,000. Now I know that sounds like a very noble number, but when you think over the 12-year period, we took $6 million out of that area and put it into Homer Glen roads. It's just barely 10%. So that was my effort, although it didn't cure the problem, and that's why we're here.
Well, once again, thank you all for your time. I did have one other question, now it slipped my mind, so I'll just hold it for a later date and see when it is.
And you can submit it to us. You can submit it to us, or you can call us, whatever way you feel most comfortable. All the questions that are being asked about all these informational meetings are also on our website, along with a lot of other FAQs as well. Okay.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, Mr. Walker.
I would just like to speak to one item that was brought up. It has to do with the bad rap that we have been giving Homer Township. I have been in attendance at every single meeting since May or June, since we started talking about this, and I don't have any recollection of anything that we've ever said that was derogatory towards Homer Township.
She may have been referring to the community rather than.
Oh, but that
Because there's a lot on social media.
that could be.
Mr. Mayor, there was one question that was asked online from the Zoom meeting that we're currently broadcasting, and I'm just going to read it, and then I can answer it too. The question is, will the village commit to not retaining the commissioner via consulting agreement unless it's in line with his current compensation? So I know there's been a lot of miscommunication and misinformation out there about what Mr. DeVivo's role is going to be as we finish the transfer of stewardship. So I think it's important that we discuss that a little bit tonight, which I think is why this question was asked. First of all, it's important for our village to understand that he is our subject matter expert. He understands how the road district is being handled today. He's been managing the road district, all the employees, all the assets, all the operations, all the programming, everything for over 15 years. Yeah, everything. So it's very important that we have Mike with us as we continue to go through the transfer of this. We don't want him to leave before the transfer is completed because we lose a critical component of that institutional knowledge. That's to the benefit of the village of Homer Glen. So, but Mike has also indicated that he's planning on retiring, and he wasn't planning on running again either for the road commissioner. So there is no agreement in place where we're going to hire Mike to be public works director or hire him back. But I do want to make sure that we're very clear that we do need Mr. DeVivo as well as his other staff members, critical senior management staff, to get us through this transfer. There's no one who knows the road district and how they do the things that they've done for on behalf of the entire community than the man sitting next to me on my right.
Do we have any other questions? Yes, sir.
And I'm sorry, I came with, I didn't sign it.
That's okay.
Mike Presti, I'm Gouger in Homer Glen, or Homer Township. I just have a couple comments where you say that the village owns all those assets because they've been paying in, but the village has only been around for a few years, and that commission's been around for a long time. So those people have bought those assets over the years, the land and things like that. I get the program here, I get where you want to go, and I'm not disagreeing with it. I get it. But in the same respect, you got a service at a pretty good price because you couldn't afford to have a road system when you incorporated the village. Same reason you don't have a police department is you got a pretty good value for a long time. And if it's time for you guys to foot the bill for it, I get it. But this whole thing where you own everything just because you exist, that stuff was there before you incorporated. And Mike has done a good job. And the system that's been here, we've had some hellacious storms. And I've never been stuck. We've never been stuck. We've never been buried. And they've always been very responsive. And I don't see why you would think that they wouldn't suddenly show up to plow your streets. I think that's not a good statement. Again, I get what you're trying to do here, but don't tell me you own everything because it's within your thing. That's been paid for many years. And you got a pretty good bargain for Mike services. So all I have to say.
May I comment on that? We never said the village owned it. Our contention was always that the people owned it, and they've been here forever. It's not about the village. It's never been about the village. It's always been about the residents. Every thought I've had, every move I've made, everything I've done is for the people I represent. These people have honored me with being able to maintain their roads for 15 years. They've constantly called me and either complain and redress it, or they thank me. But they've given me that honor to maintain your roads, and to maintain not only the roads, but that road district. When I paint the building, I don't paint it for Mike DeVivo, I don't paint it for the township. I'm maintaining your property in a way that will serve you forever. This is not about the village. This is about the residents. It's never been about the village. It's never been about the township. It's always been about the residents. And I want to make no mistake about that. I'm not here for the village. I'm not doing this for the village. I'm doing it for the people, the residents. So they'll have a secure system maintaining their roads for the future.
I never questioned your integrity.
No, but Mr. DeVivo has a point. This isn't all about the village. This is about the residents. We do want to make sure that they don't have to worry about anything, just the way it has been. And I agree with you. Every snow, every rainstorm, every windstorm, everything was done. You never had a second guess that it was going to be done. That's how this board wants it to continue. This isn't about Homer Glen. This is about the residents of Homer Glen. You wake up, I want you to all be happy. You go to sleep, the same thing. All we're trying to do is just duplicate what he's doing right now and making sure this all happens. Anyone else?
I do want to thank Mike for all these years, for everything. A lot of stuff from the fest, from the fireworks. And Brock, I would love to have that feeling of seeing my address be Homer Glen. I don't have it yet. But why I'm really up here is the people in the audience today are different, and I want them to hear what Mike Costa had to say last week, because I think that was a really important part about the fact that the road district, everything could go back to the county.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna let Eric Hansen comment on that, because actually we did some additional research, so we can clarify that.
Yeah, I think what Mr. Costa had mentioned at the last go-round was if the road district, the amount of miles that the road district has under its control is less than 15, then it automatically reverts to the county. And that's not accurate. I think that it's actually 4 miles. So if the road district, as properties become annexed into corporate authorities, for example, if Homer Glen goes out and annexes a property and it comes into the village now, that reduces the amount of road miles that is contained within the road district. So that number is actually 4. So if it falls below 4, what happens is it doesn't revert to the county, it reverts to the township, and then the township is required to contract to get that work done. They can contract with the county, another municipality, or a private contractor. But with all due respect to Mr. Costa, and I know that it made a good point, and it got us thinking, we want to get out there and take a look to see what the actual number is. And I think that there's just a mistake with regard to, there's a referendum question that can be at 50 miles versus 4 miles. So hopefully that clarifies the question.
If that's all for questions, I'd like to read a couple from our first mayor, our second mayor, and I've already spoke my piece at the beginning of it. But it'll kind of give you a history of where everyone's trying to go with this. Our first mayor was Russ Petrizzo. He had sent us a letter, and I'll read it. Dear Homer Glen residents, having the honor to proudly serve as Homer Glen's first mayor for 2 terms, and having lived in Homer Township for nearly 35 years, my ties to the village and its residents run deep. Almost 20 years ago, I worked with the community to lay the groundwork for incorporating village boundaries that officially established Homer Glen as a village. By doing so, we as residents achieve the power to rein in urban sprawl and control our own destiny as a municipality. That allowed the community to manage new commercial and residential growth and development in Homer Glen and enable us to preserve the best of our rural past through a government that was accountable to the people it served. Upon forming the village in 2001, our shared vision was that Homer Glen would gradually mature and grow at a pace residents prefer. From the very start, one of our top priorities was to eventually form the village's own public works department by transferring the responsibility to maintenance of our streets to the village from the Homer Township Road District. After nearly 20 years, the timing is finally right to do that. The village comprises 89% of the roads maintained by Township Road District. These are roads located in the Homer Glen that the village, more specifically taxpayers, own. Meanwhile, village residents have been paying taxes to fund the road district, including the purchasing of trucks and equipment and paying staff salaries. Homer Glen's village board is in full support of the transfer, and the Township's road district commissioner, whose own job will be eliminated by the transfer, believes it is in the best interest of our residents. On the other hand, enabling the Township to control our village's streets creates uncertainty which could end up costing taxpayers more in the long run. If Homer Township has its way and takes control of our roads, we could end intergovernmental agreement with Homer Glen within 1 year, leaving the village to build a new public works department from the ground up, which means buying new equipment, purchasing property, and hiring new workers, all of which would cost residents millions in taxes. That's something we just can't afford. Every other municipality in Homer Township, Lockport, Lamont, and New Lenox, and most every municipality in Illinois maintains its streets with its own public works department. For good reason. Just like we did 2 decades in forming the village, we must control our own destiny and not let others dictate our future for us. The village now has the capacity and the means to seize the opportunity. To ensure this happens, I urge residents to vote no on the Township Referendum that appears on the November 3rd ballot and support the transfer of stewardship to move Homer Glen forward. Sincerely, Russ Petrizzo. Then we go to our second mayor, James Daly. As a 2-term mayor of the village of Homer Glen, I fully understand the importance of Public Works Department for the residents of Homer Glen. It will provide the independence and security the village needs to maintain its infrastructure into the future. The current intergovernmental agreement between the village and the township grants Homer Township complete control of the maintenance of our roads and drainage systems. This includes tax levies, budgets, employees, equipment, maintenance programs, snowplow procedures, and much more. The goal of the asset transfer plan now being proposed by the Highway Commissioner in the village is to create a Public Works Department for Homer Glen and break away from the township and end that control forever. That is why I fully support this plan. The township has recently placed a referendum on November 3rd ballot that, if successful, will allow the township board to extend that control over the village by a township board vote. If you're asking, will it happen? Then consider this. At the last town board meeting, they voted to sue the village and the road district. Therefore, they are suing their own residents. That's why I'm asking residents to vote no on the referendum to abolish the road district. A no vote on this referendum will keep the decisions regarding the asset transfer program out of the hands of the town board and ensure that the public works program will be successful. It's time that the village moves forward with this plan and become completely independent from the township. Independence and self-control were the reasons we incorporated 20 years ago. James P. Daly. And the one thing that I did want to say, I've already read my letter, so I don't need to read that again. I think that you know how this board and how I feel about this village. The way it works is all we're trying to do, like I said, is just make this to where we don't have to get up and we don't have to worry about anything else that we have. The police departments, yes, we do get a very good deal from them. But I can also go out and spend $13 million if the residents want me to get our own police department, where we actually have it better than most of the police departments. Will County Police does amazing work for us at a very reasonable price. We are still one of the safest communities in the know we've had some issues, but the issues are all over, and until the pandemic goes away, nothing's going to change. But it's very important to understand that we're not doing this for us. All this really does is make more work for us if we really think about it. But we know what we have when we get this. Mr. DeVivo put his life's blood in this thing, and I don't think there's one person in here that would want to change the way it was. Everything we get is just heaven sent to me. And I like it the way it's going with the village just being, I don't have to worry about it. Mr. DeVivo gets it done. And when this does change over, there's going to be a board that oversees everything, and we'll have someone that's doing the same thing Mr. DeVivo did. So we're not trying to get anything for free here. The village has paid, and we pay more than people really understand. He does get the levy. We pay him our motor fuel tax, which we don't have to do, but we keep up with it. We want to be fair with all this too. And as for the township, the reason we're doing it is if we do it the opposite way and tax them, then we're right back to square one. Then we're taxing Lockport again, we're taxing Lennox again, and we're taxing Lamont again. We're trying to get away from that. We're trying to get to where we're independent. We know what to do. I mean, I think we've all done a very good job here. From Mayor Patrizio, Mayor Bailey, to myself, to all the boards that have been here. We're not working for us, we're working for you. So if there is an issue that you do have, and you think that we're doing something wrong, I'd like to hear about it. Because we don't want to make it on here. We're trying to make it to where you're very comfortable and you feel good about being here. That's all I would say. So, with that, we don't need a motion to adjourn, but the meeting is over. If you do have any questions, we'll stick around for a few minutes. If you have questions that you're really not sure of yet, put them in. They will be posted within 24 hours after we get them if you give us the questions that you do have. So, other than that, meeting's adjourned.
Goodbye.
Thank you.